Hey guys, we're back for week 2 of Youth Cast. Let's roll the intro. We're back in the room with Andrew.
What?
We got Pastor David.
I don't like when you call me Pastor.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I regret it. We're back in the room with David and Cade.
What's up?
We got Sam,
Holding
the mixer.
it down.
DJ Sam
on
D.
Twitch at the Sam D.
Why do you keep plugging
Twitch account.
This is so
At the
bad.
same D.
Like, I'm gonna be like playing one time, not even realizing it. There's gonna be like 10 kids from church watching me, and one of my friends just being an idiot.
Don't do anything bad.
Like,
Famous.
I know. I've been trying not to.
Sam's stream has been like kind of out, and then all of a sudden it like blows up because we talked about it in this podcast, youth podcast.
Shouts.
It could work.
The first
Shout out to
Christian
God.
streamer.
Praise God. Hey, well, we're excited to be back with you. Last week was an awesome podcast. It was so fun just getting to talk, process our emotions, and kind of what's going on right now. And so we're excited to do that again.
Yeah.
What are we talking about this week?
We're gonna kind of keep going. Obviously, these COVID convos. I think, and I didn't think we were gonna keep going with it, but we kind of are. I mean, because it's so prevalent right now. But we're just gonna look at it from some different perspectives, and from some different points of view. And the first thing I think we're gonna talk about is leadership in chaos.
Is this topic 3 of 19?
Topic 3, 19 on COVID convos. COVID-19 convos.
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah, that's good. Probably not 19, but
That's
this
a
is
joke.
probably the third one. Because leadership is something people talk about a lot, especially in older circles. I feel like a lot of people, when they think leadership, they're thinking these older influencers,
Yeah.
maybe even like Instagram influencers or YouTube, social media influencers. People think that, but typically that's an older person
Yeah.
who is leading something. But John Maxwell, who's a leadership genius, he is probably the #1 ranking official of leadership in the world.
Wow.
Says of all ages, leadership is the same thing. It's influence. And I believe any single person can influence someone else or something else. And so we want to talk about that for the youth. How can youth lead in chaos? How can youth influence change and influence culture in the midst of this craziness? And so I kind of want us to talk about that a little bit. And Pastor Brian, in his statement for the church, our lead pastor for North Place, he coined a phrase. Actually, I don't know if he coined it. I think he got it.
No, he got it from someone
He
else.
got it from someone else.
Yes.
But it's his phrase, leadership versus reactionship. Leadership versus reactionship. And how you're leading versus how you are reacting. And so, real quick, let's just start fun. I want to hear about a time where you should have led or influenced changed, but instead you were influenced or you reacted a little bit in the wrong way. Andrew, you have something.
Oh man. Okay. I guess if I have to share this story. All right. So a little while ago, me and Sam actually started a small group for young adults. And
Shout out Keto Connect.
shouts Keto Connect.
Is that really the name?
We're called Keto. We call ourselves Keto Connect because a couple people were doing keto in the beginning, but none of us are on keto anymore,
Corona
Okay.
Connect.
except for Caden. So yikes.
Caden's trying to be on keto right now.
That's right.
I got my sugar-free sodas.
There you go. Anyway, we were starting, and when we started out, it was mostly like me, Sam, and then all of my cousins. And so it was like any other family gathering, except we would talk about the Bible. So, and so one time we were talking, and we kind of got off track from the discussion, and one of my cousins, who shall remain nameless, she said something that maybe went kind of along the borders of gossip-ish, and then I kind of just, instead of just kind of leading the moment back on topic and just kind of being gracious and just realizing, hey, these people, they're on the journey with us, you know, we're trying to lead them, I kind of snapped. I guess I was comfortable with the person because they are my cousin. I've known them my whole life. So, but the problem was it was in a very public situation. And so I said, hey, that's not cool. And literally, just the rest of the conversation just went. It just tanked.
So awkward.
Did the whole
tanked.
room like go silent?
It went so silent.
Sam, you were the only non-family member in the room at the time.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Oh, give him the mic. Mic him up,
I'll give you mine.
boy.
Oh, we passed the mic. I'll just pretend like I have a little stand here.
Love it.
Yeah, it was incredibly awkward. Everyone was looking at each other, like back and forth, like those glances of like Andrew reacted, but he also wasn't in the best place at the
That's
time.
true.
So it literally went from like bad to
It
worse.
was so bad.
It was so quick too. Like Andrew tried to keep going after. Like Andrew
yeah.
straight up like said that and just
Try to go back
try
to
to
the
go
Bible.
back to it. And,
It was so
and
bad. It was terrible.
What script, do you remember what scripture you were talking about?
Oh shoot. Yeah, we were talking about.
This is really impressive if you remember this.
No,
'cause
I
do
do.
not
I
remember
do because it was a very.
No, it was
it was a
very
big turning
important.
point in my life. But I remember it was when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, praying that the Father's will would be done and not His own. And I really wished that my own will wasn't done in that moment
in
because
that moment, your will was done.
yes, it was definitely
God.
done.
That's not cool. And
Yeah,
so that
thanks
is
guys. That was my
reaction ship.
I wish I had
reaction
like
ship
a
of
little.
story of the day.
Yeah, I know.
Wah, wah.
I'll pass the mic back to Claudia.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sam.
I honestly, it makes me think of like, it was the joke, like the running joke last week about the toilet paper. How like everyone just reacted and got a million rolls of toilet paper. And then I go to the grocery store because I actually need toilet paper and there's not any toilet paper to get.
But we went last week, and I literally went in and I was like, I'm gonna be like, everyone else is gonna be crazy. Clyde and I went to the store, and everyone else is gonna be crazy, but we're cool. Like we know what we're there for. We're gonna be, smart, sane people. And by the end of it, Claudia could tell I was visibly anxious and like visibly, I was like snapping at her, and I was like, the environment of Kroger.
You were reacting to the
hostile.
environment.
Kroger.
Very hostile.
It was, and it bled off on me, and I reacted instead of influencing it. And then literally, we went to Tom Thumb yesterday, and as we're walking in, she literally goes, "Are we? What did you say to me?"
I was like, are we going to have a good shopping experience
Oh,
today?
that's so sincere. that's out of trauma.
Kroger 1K. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, so she told me, "You're reacting. Are we gonna have a good shopping trip?"
But there's
today?"
been, I feel like ever since this whole Corona thing broke out, everything has just been like, oh, I'm going to react on social media and I'm going to say what I think. Or I'm going to react and I'm going to go buy 6 rolls of toilet paper. Like,
Why do you need 6 rolls?
why? Yeah.
Please explain
There-
that.
It's for your.
We were
bunker.
looking at some memes of those earlier. Are there any good toilet paper memes?
Oh man.
We gotta find that toilet paper meme where it's like that TikTok. Yeah.
Sam can put those over.
There was one that I
We'll put 'em
found.
on the social media.
It's not a toilet paper meme, but it's a meme and it says, because there's like this thing where your dogs can't get the corona. That's what they're saying. So it says, me sending my dog out for supplies since he can't contract the COVID-19.
Oh man. I wish.
We need Airbud.
Look at us. Hey, look at us.
Okay, we do not need to rehash
Dad
that.
meme.
So, those are some kind of funny examples. But I mean, in
Yes.
this chaos, in this craziness, youth, we have a tendency to react instead of lead or initiate or influence change and environments around us. And that's kind of a difficult thing to talk about. But why do you think? I just want to know why do you feel like it's harder to lead than to react?
I think react is human nature.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot because reacting is what happens immediately, and I think leadership takes time. And I don't know that we necessarily love things that take time. I think it can really easily be a shot on our generation of like, oh, everybody wants something now, and it's like this negative. And I don't think it's always a negative, but I do think that there's a certain aspect of like reactionship comes naturally to us,
Yeah.
and good leadership is a learned thing.
Well, I would say reactionship is really a selfish thing and leadership is a selfless thing.
Yeah.
And so our immediate thought when we're reacting to something is, how does this affect me? How does this affect my family? How does this affect my kids? How does this affect my finances? And so we're reacting based off of how we feel about it rather than taking a step back. Leadership is really, I need to take a step back and think of the people who I influence, not just how this affects me.
Absolutely.
Andrew, anything on that?
Man, I was actually going to say pretty much exactly that. Yeah, like reactionship is me centered, leadership is others centered.
Yeah.
Like you're keeping in mind everybody else. I mean, that's
Yeah. So as a youth, especially in an environment where you're home right now more often than normal,
right.
you know, you're not surrounded by people. Typically, you would think I can lead peers or those younger than me.
Yeah.
And may have siblings like at home with you, and so leading them might seem a little obvious, but maybe you have siblings that are older or the same age that are home with you, or parents even that are kind of freaking out trying to figure this all out. Like how do you not just react to what they're thinking and what home life is like, but how as a youth can you actually influence your family? How can you actually initiate some change in culture and stuff at home for your parents, for your siblings?
I think something even as simple as how are the things that I say and do, how do they affect the way that the people around me feel? Like, is the way that I'm responding, the way that I'm reacting, causing anxiety, or is it causing frustration, or is it leading people towards peace, or is it, does that make sense? Like, I think you can influence people even in the things that you say, the way that you respond to things.
Yeah.
Like, you can simply start with how you respond.
I think you have to have an honest evaluation of how you feel.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of hard to lead a moment well when you can't honestly say what you're thinking or what you're feeling or the emotions that you have.
Yeah.
So like last week I told that story about how like I yelled at my dad because of how overwhelmed I got. I can promise I wasn't leading that moment very well. But a lot of it had to do with I couldn't sit and breathe long enough to have an honest evaluation of what was logical in the moment.
That's kind of like that book we had to read. It's called Emotionally Healthy Leader. And it talks about this process of like the best way for you to lead people in a way that's emotionally healthy is you kind of got to start with yourself. You got to make sure that you're emotionally healthy. You got to make sure that your process, first you got to recognize your emotions, and then you got to process through your emotions. Then once you hit that level, that's when you can then go to, how do I become aware of the emotions of the people that are around me, and then help them even process through their emotions too.
It's really good. We're actually going to talk about that a little bit in the next segment of this podcast. Kind of what's interesting about those things is, in its own way, then leadership is a reaction. It's not a natural bent. We're not naturally bent to lead or influence positively necessarily other people.
Right.
We're naturally bent to be selfish. And so like you, Kaden, in that situation you talked about last week, your initial reaction was to snap at your dad, and you argued with him, which I would never want to argue with your dad.
No.
Like it's so intimidating.
That sounds so
I literally
scary.
cut in mid-sentence and I was like, I can't, and I walked off. And probably the scariest moment of my life.
Wow. But
Yikes.
even if you would have chosen to like say, Dad, I'm gonna go to my room, I'm gonna breathe for a second, I'm thinking, that's leadership because you're influencing the situation.
It's maturity
It's
too.
maturity, but it's a reaction.
Yeah.
So maybe reactionship is, when we're talking about reactionship in a negative sense, reactionship is probably our natural negative bent to selfishness.
Yeah.
Leadership is a trained reaction to influence others positively. Is kind of what I'm getting, because we're like, that's something that you have to work toward, but it is still a reaction.
And the thing about or leadership is that it requires intentionality. Reacting just happens. It's just like we've been saying, it's your natural response. It's your like your default setting is to become overwhelmed, to run to the grocery store, to do whatever. But when you are being intentional, that's when it becomes a leadership. It's you're thinking through the effects. You're thinking through, how can I help people? You're thinking through, how can I sacrifice myself, what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, so that I can lead other people.
So, Andrew, you have one older brother, correct?
Yes.
And then one younger brother.
That's right.
And both your parents.
Yes.
At home. There's 5 of you.
Yeah.
What are some ways, looking into even looking at the situation now, and looking maybe into the future with everything that's going on, or even some ways that you may have, how are you influencing your family?
Yeah.
In a way that North Place Youth could also take home with them.
So good. I think, I think that like the way that you act is contagious. Like, I think your temperament, your behavior, the way that you treat people, it's contagious. And so there's a saying that a lot of people use. It's, you want to be the thermostat and not the thermometer. Like, you want to be the one to set the tone. And so we're up in our houses, we're in the crib like all day long. You know, that's what it's going to be like for however long it's going to be. And so chances are we're probably going to get tired of the people around us that we see every day. Right. And so I know for me, like, I like to, you know, like I can have my extroverted moments, and I know we're probably gonna get into that later, but I also need time to decompress on my own, like, and so whenever I am in that headspace where I'm just like, I need to be alone, I don't I don't want to, you know, see the latest TikTok that my younger brother Steven wants to show me, or I don't, you know what I mean? Like,
shout out to Steven.
It shouts to Steven, bro. He's a good man. But when I'm in a healthy place, I'll go and take time on my own, and just, you know, chill on my bed, or maybe go outside, chill in the hammock, or whatever, like go for a walk, so I can be better to come back and interact.
So when we think leadership, we typically, obviously, we're talking about influencing other people for good.
Right.
So you think community, you think other people. But so what you're saying is almost, sometimes for you, a part of your effective influencing of your family is actually getting away from your family.
I think that's part of Jesus's effective influencing. Like,
that's right.
All throughout Scripture, you see where Jesus separates himself to go pray and to align his spirit with the Father's. And I think that's so important in this season for us, because it's easy for us to just do, come up with a plan, do this, go get this, when really we're forgetting the most important and the most powerful tool that we have is the power of the Holy Spirit.
Right.
That's leading us. That's what gives us discernment. That's what really is our guide. It's our true north. And so if we don't create time, like Andrew was saying, to separate ourselves and to align our heart with the Father's and allow the Holy Spirit to lead us in that direction, then we're doing things out of our own power. And clearly we've said we're not perfect, and our natural tendency is to be selfish. We're humans. And so without going and separating yourself to spend time with the Lord, to process your emotions, to even just sometimes sit by yourself for a minute, it's hard for you to lead people effectively and in a way that I think the Lord would call you to lead people.
And that takes, again, intentionality and selflessness. And I want to ask Sam a question here in a second, but in Matthew chapter 20, the disciples are kind of arguing about this, like, who's the greatest, or like, who's the best leader, who's the best influencer, and Jesus kind of tells them, the world says it's like this, and he kind of describes how the world thinks of leaders, powerful, power hungry, or people who are just kind of holding others down under their thumb, who don't take time to themselves to pray and seek the Lord, but who really just go with their initial reaction. Yes. Right. But he says, actually, in verse 26 of chapter 20 in Matthew, he says, "Not so with you, for whoever wants to become great in the kingdom, you actually must become a servant of other people." So the best leaders, the best influencers, are not those who try to do things, for themselves to make their name great. Not people who don't just go with their initial selfish reaction, but actually who decide, I'm going to do whatever I can to serve those around me that I can actually influence. And Sam, I think that's kind of something you're doing really, really well. It's a little different for you.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for you, but there is this reality that you're doing a great thing for your family, but most people probably wouldn't look at that and go, what great leadership.
Yeah.
What great influence. So tell me a little bit about how
so
your family
with this COVID-19 virus out and about doing its thing,
Right.
Working in the shadows.
Yeah, working in the shadows. You can't see it, but it's there. My mom has just recently finished some cancer treatments. And so that does mean that her immune system is not at 100%, unlike the rest of us youngins, young bucks, as we said last week.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, there's a lot of just, I think it's a lot of just precautions being taken in place in my home as of right now. So like I'm the one that's going out a lot because we have stuff to do here. Like, you know, we got content to make, we got stuff to do. Yeah. And so I'm having to also step back in that sense of like, I'm out. I can't be around you guys that much because I don't know who I've come in contact with or who the people that I've come in contact with have contact with. Yeah. So it's putting me in this weird place where it's like, I have to basically just keep to myself as much as possible just for the safety of them. And it's really weird now because everyone's back home, right? Right. So we're at the point where like colleges are already done for like a month, or they're doing online. Like my best friend right now, he's doing online. So the boys are back in town is what we're saying all the time. We're like, the boys are back, like, you know? And so it's High School Musical. So it's really difficult for me to just be like, I'm sorry guys, like we can't hang out, or I can't go out. Like I'm trying to limit that as much as possible, which it's already started to happen this past week or so.
You're almost having to prioritize because you would love to lead and influence maybe even your friends who are home in this time, but that could put your family at risk. And so in influencing and leading in your house, even like trying to, like, it's a selfless act. Your initial reaction is the boys are back. Yeah. Right. But you're having to be cautious because you know that your decisions could negatively influence and impact your mom's situation and even your dad's. A little bit.
And I feel like you got to take that into account in like everyone's situation, because right now you're looking at an extra spring break, or like I don't even know how the school's going, so like maybe you have a class a day or something and you got some homework, so you finish that out and you're like, I can hang out or something. But you're gonna come to the point where some of your friends are gonna start dipping out and they're like, hey, I can't hang out, like my parents won't let me, I can't. And you have to start figuring out how you're gonna keep that relationship going. Even if you're not around them 24/7, like you might have been during the regular spring break without this thing going around.
We're gonna move to that here in a few minutes on our next topic of the podcast. But it's really good, really good.
I'll pass the mic back to Claudia.
Thanks, Emily.
Transitions.
Maybe Sam might need it back on this one because with maybe in a second. I don't know. I want to talk one more thing, which we're actually going to help. We're going to help you guys at North Place Youth with this. But we said last week, this is the most connected generation.
Yep.
The generation with the most access.
Like our generation.
Has the most access to information, to communication, more than ever before.
Like someone just connected with Sam and reached out to him, you know?
I don't know if you
wow, bro. Just kidding.
So I want to talk about leading men. What?
Nothing.
I want to talk about leading and influencing through social media, because it's kind of the only tool we have right now to read, or at least one of the main ones that we have. And I'm kind of talking Facebook and texting and stuff, all within that brand there of social. I know it's not technically
Facebook.
FaceTime. I meant FaceTime.
Oh, okay.
I use Facebook. I'm kind of old.
Whoa. He's on the cusp of those millennials.
Okay, boomer. Facebook, right, guys?
What?
Just kidding.
So, how can you lead and influence? Not react on social media. Everyone's reacting on social media.
Boy, everybody's reacting.
Everybody's reacting.
Everybody
on
up
social
in there.
Media. So how do you lead on social media?
Man.
This is easy. This is right off the bat. Can I borrow a microphone?
Mic him up again, boy.
Back to you.
This boy dropping.
So I think social media, it's something that I'm on a lot. You guys think that you're on your phones. I probably triple your screen time with the amount of time that I'm on it. Okay? So, yeah, it is work. It's no longer a place to have fun for me. It is just work, and it's terrible.
It's become his demise.
Right off the bat, no one cares what you have to say. And I think you need to take that. And it's not just a hot take. It's literally, there is a time and place for, I'm just kind of staring at that camera just in case I want to use it. I can stare at you guys too. But there's a time and a place for when your opinion is needed / wanted. And I think right now is not the time or place, because everyone's still high school, middle school. There are people commenting on it who haven't even finished college yet. There are people who have finished college yet, but they're not even doctors. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, why does your opinion matter more so than the other person who saw something else online that someone wrote?
That's a fair point. So I think that's big because leadership in this sense, the best influencing thing may not be to speak out at all.
No.
Sometimes the harshest voices, we don't think of them as the greatest leaders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're probably the greatest reactors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're not always the best leaders, just because you're outspoken and loud. So I think it's a good point. I told Claudia, I had a post. I read something on Facebook. Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, it's okay.
And I was livid, and I was actually ready to blast it. And I was like, I'm literally like I'm reacting. I'm no longer leading in this situation because influencing it would actually kind of just be to let it fizzle out, let it die its course. So sometimes it's not about being outspoken and not stating your opinion, but maybe sometimes it's about breathing, taking a second, and actually influencing it in that way.
I really think it's very similar, if not the same thing, to what we were saying earlier, in the sense of sometimes the way you respond influences people.
Right.
The things you have influence no matter what, whether you're being a good leader or a bad leader.
Yeah.
Like the way you react, the things you say have influence over people who know you, who look up to you, who respect you, whatever. And so when you just type away because you're frustrated or you're mad or because this is what you think and I want people to know what I think, like, okay, cool. But how is that affecting other people? What's the point?
Yeah.
To me, what's the point of going and blasting that post on Facebook? Who's that going to help?
Mm.
Who is that going to serve? Who is that going to love? What's it going to do? Right. It's going to get this pot stirred and it's going to get people debating on your comments and on your feed. But at the end of the day, how were we rallying together as a community to work this is affecting everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
The world's got enough opinions.
Yeah. Right.
So let's give them Jesus. Right.
That's right.
The world's got enough thoughts on everything that's happening, so let's give them the one thing they don't have.
And I think a lot of those posts to me just sound so hopeless.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
When at the end of the day, we have the ultimate hope. So why are we coming from this place of what the heck is happening and da-da-da-da when it's like, can I not present this hope that I have to you? Can I not show you like the peace that I can find in the presence of the Lord, even in the midst of this chaos? So it's like what you're communicating is essentially the feeling or the emotion that you're putting out there for people to receive. We said, I don't know if we said this today or last week, but emotions are contagious.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you walk into a room, this happens all the time. David walks in, he's frustrated. Then I easily become frustrated because he's frustrated, or like, it just happens because you
transfer over social media as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the best like leadership principles is learning how to react to your reaction. So it's like if you find yourself in one of those moments where you already did blast someone on social media through Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or Snapchat or any of them. Maybe you had that moment of weakness and it was like, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
How do you react to that moment? Because I think that's when it really speaks to your capability as a leader and your family. Like when you snap at a family member because you've been locked up together for 2 weeks, do you apologize or do you just pretend it didn't happen?
Well, and part of leadership is humility and recognizing just because you're a leader doesn't mean you're all that. Doesn't mean you know everything.
That's right.
And it's recognizing there's still a lot that I got to grow in. There's still a lot that I have to learn. And I realized that I made a mistake. And every time I've seen someone who's in leadership over me apologize for their mistakes or own up to it, I respect them 10 times more.
Right.
For sure.
One of my favorite passages of scripture, and we'll kind of wrap up this conversation on leading in chaos with this, is Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. And it says, let us not become weary, or let's not get tired of doing good. Let's not get tired of doing good. For in the proper time, in due season, at the right time, we will reap a harvest. What that means is we'll see the reward. We'll see the fruit of that good that we did if we do not give up. And so I think that's a key aspect of leadership is knowing, okay, this person blasted, and I want to respond. I want to react. What is doing good in this moment?
Yeah.
Sitting back, I'm going to pray for them. And
So
as I
good.
continue to do that good, or my sibling is like, it's day 4 of quarantine, it's day 10 of quarantine,
Right.
and I'm literally about to strangle them. It's
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
18th TikTok they've shown me in the past 20 minutes. And I'm like, as Andrew, shout out to Steven. It's like I'm in that moment, and I'm just ready. I'm ready to blast.
But
Yeah.
it goes back again to what we were saying about reactionship versus leadership and how important it is to sometimes just separate yourself.
Right.
When you're scrolling on social media for hours, that's all you're feeding yourself with. But when you take a step back and you're like, okay, Lord, where are you in the midst of this?
Yeah.
What are
You're gonna
you
reap the
speaking?
harvest of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and then let that become your overflow
Yeah.
rather than what you're seeing on social media or what you're reading or what you're watching on the news all the time. Allow the presence of the Lord to be your overflow. Just evaluate like how you are responding to what you're seeing, and if you sense yourself responding in a negative way, then
Yeah.
unfollow them.
That's
Start a new
right.
account,
Yeah.
follow some positive things. Maybe like look, because Instagram has this feature where you have multiple accounts, right? So maybe you go out and you make like call it there's no like opinion-based stuff coming at you.
Yeah, it's
just
good.
Purely just
And I think
Good
as
vibes.
you do that,
Yeah.
it's gonna help you lead and influence other people better.
Yeah.
Which is really exciting. After we come back after the like into the next section, we're actually gonna start talking on how to lead yourself
Ooh.
in the midst of isolation.
Oh man.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about isolation on the next topic. But I think so I think that's the big takeaway for this, man. There's gonna be moments on social media and in person with my family and friends. I have to pull away. Not to isolate myself more,
Yeah.
but actually to let Jesus fill
Process,
me up.
yeah.
Help me to process my emotions so that I can influence people
Yeah.
in a better and healthier way. I think it's a big deal, big takeaway. And if you keep doing that, like it says, if we don't give up, if we keep doing good, we're gonna see the fruit of that. And so and that's on social media and in person. That's a
Beautiful.
great talk, awesome stuff. We'll be right back. Guys, we really enjoyed services last weekend. Thank you for tuning in and watching online. And thank you for being with us, North Place Youth family. We love you guys. A couple things. We are still good for youth camp coming up in June. Where we haven't heard anything else as of right now. And so you can still register. If you sign up now, you can still get the early bird price. And you'll lock it in even if you just put in the deposit. So we want to see you there. It's going to be an incredible time. All of your Youth Cast week 1 and 2 hosts will be there.
Yo.
Hopefully. Maybe. Caden. I don't know. Sometimes he gives me back and forth answers. I think it'll be really cool. We want to see you there. Also, go ahead and either wherever you're watching, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, comment below or send us a DM and let us know what topics you want us to cover on future Youth Cast episodes. I think that's something we're probably going to do again. It's
Please
really
do.
Fun, really cool. So let us know. What are some things you want us to talk about? What are some things you want us to address? And we're gonna hit those things up.
Chop it up.
Time. And so, Caden, why don't you tell us what we're going to be talking about for the next few minutes here?
Yeah, so we're going to continue our COVID combos.
Yes.
Number 4 of 19.
Do it.
But no, we really
Not really true.
not really true. We really want to talk about the concept of isolation and like what we are going through with that, because most of us have been quarantined for probably a little while now. It could go for who knows how long. And so we just want to talk about what it is like to be alone, to be isolated in your homes or wherever you are. So we're going to start that. David, would you like to kick it off?
Yeah. So I think it segues kind of perfectly from the last conversation we had about leadership and influencing others. And we didn't even really plan it, but we kind of got to that place where sometimes to lead other people, you really have to lead yourself. And so how do you lead yourself? How do you influence yourself out of or in the midst of isolation?
Reading books.
Read John Maxwell.
The best.
So you're let's take it from a youth perspective, right? I'm a senior.
Yeah.
Okay. And I am about to I'm about to change I'm about to graduate. Like I had all these plans and ready to go. And I didn't realize that a few weeks ago was the last time I would see some of my friends because we're going to different schools after we graduate. And I've been home. I don't really, my siblings are younger than me. We don't connect on that deep of a level. I can influence them, but I'm not really there. I don't want to talk to my parents. I'm alone. How do I not stay isolated?
Oh, shoot.
That's a good question.
That's a good one.
I think there's a lot of sides of isolation. There's the negative connotation that isolation has, where it's like, oh, this person just isolates themselves from the rest of the group. Like they don't, which I think is kind of the side that
Andrew for that.
No, Andrew just honestly, Andrew's like the most extroverted.
Using Garland. And it just goes away.
Right.
But this, I think this is the side of isolation that you're referring to in this context specifically. But you have the isolation where it's like you remove yourself, you distance relationships with people, and then you have the isolation where it's kind of what we were talking about, intentional, where I just need to get away for a minute just to kind of hit reset. And I think it's important to recognize which kind of isolation you find yourself in, whether it's a isolation that's going to refresh you and almost like give you a new sense of energy and drive to go back into I was going to say society, but that's not a good word. Community. Yeah. Or it's just, I'm pushing myself away from people. I'm pushing myself away from relationships. That gets dangerous. We were created to be in community. We've talked about that and how it's important for us to grow with each other, to learn with each other. And oftentimes when you're isolated, it's not like you're being efficient with your time. You're just kind of, you're distancing yourself from everything. You're distancing yourself from people, your emotions. And so recognizing which type of isolation you're in, I think is really important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I think just kind of talking about isolation, a lot of you guys know Lauren Hudson. She just battled cancer, and because of that, she kind of had to isolate herself. And so I think just having someone who has dealt with isolation from a healthy perspective, like she was forced into isolation. So how does she do that? But also, like, how do you keep yourself healthy when you have to isolate yourself, or how do you keep yourself from isolating yourself emotionally? So let's give Lauren a call.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Ooh, let's ring her up.
First ever phone call.
Call in.
Caller number 9.
Hello, caller number 6. You just won tickets.
Hey, Lauren, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. You're live on Youth Cast right now.
Oh, hi, guys.
Hey.
Hey, so we're in here. We're kind of talking about isolation and how there's this balance. Obviously, a lot of us have been kind of forced to isolate ourselves physically from people, but how do you keep yourself from isolating yourself emotionally at the same time? Or even like we've talked about, sometimes you have to separate yourself to kind of process your emotions, spend time with the Lord. So kind of what has been your experience with isolation emotionally? How did you deal with that? Just kind of give us your take on what you walked through.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic because, like, I just got done with chemo and everything was going back to normal, and then all this happened, and I feel like I'm kind of where I was at before with not being able to go out and kind of being scared. And so I feel like people are kind of getting the idea of what it's like to be a cancer patient and how like isolating it can be, to not want to go outside and to kind of avoid getting sick.
Yeah.
But some things I feel like really helped me when I was isolated and I was kind of trying to process my emotions was journaling every day. I kept a journal and I just wrote down all of my emotions, because being at home, it can be very lonely, and it gives you like enough time to really kind of get lost in your thoughts and lost in your head. And a lot of kids, rely on school and church and all those other activities to kind of like get away from that. And I feel like when that's taken away from them, it really gives them time to get lost in their thoughts, like I said. So I found that journaling really helped me release what I was feeling onto paper, because I felt like when I wrote it down, I didn't have to think about it anymore. So that really, really helped me. And also, I think this is a really great time to kind of get into the Word, and just spend some alone time with the Lord, because just really focus on what He's putting on your heart and what He's trying to tell you, because times like these are times where we can really focus on our relationship with God and really concentrate on what He's trying to tell us in these types of seasons where everything else is kind of being taken away from us.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of differentiate isolating yourself to kind of refresh and journal versus isolating yourself from your family in a way that was distancing yourself from them? How did you keep those healthy relationships in the midst of that isolation?
Yeah, I think honestly that isolating kind of helped us get closer in a way. Just spending time together and all that. I don't know if that answers that or not.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's awesome. Really practical stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for hopping in, giving us your insight, your perspective.
Of course. I hope it helped.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool getting to hear from someone who has walked through something very similar. And I know it was a long process for you to kind of get in that swing and that routine of like, how do I emotionally process through this in a healthy way? And so thanks for kind of speaking into this. And
Yeah, of course.
we're grateful for you.
Love you, Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Really quick, because we're about to have to wrap this up pretty soon.
Yeah.
I want to move into this last conversation piece about isolation, because for some people, it's a big deal. The more you isolate yourself, the more distanced you feel. The more you practice social distancing, the more you genuinely feel disconnected from the world around you, and that's saddening. For some people, that's the most exciting news they've ever heard in their entire lifetime. Right? Like, I get to be an introvert. I get to stay inside. Video games. I don't got to talk to nobody.
For other people, it's their worst nightmare.
Oh my gosh.
So
Claudia hates being home alone.
She's
with
like,
me.
I have to be with David every
24/7.
Person, I know. She's great though. She's amazing.
I guess.
She did pick that.
I did
She
indeed. I said I do.
And so, Kaden, I know you are an extrovert, but you sometimes have you can kind of all of my friends, you sometimes can go you have really extroverted days where you're like, I just want to go to coffee shops and talk to random people and be the greatest thing. And sometimes you're like, yeah, peace out. It can just depend. I actually don't know which one you technically are.
I don't know. I've never taken the test because it kind of, the mood I'm in will determine the answer of the test.
Right.
Sure.
But I would argue that I'm an introvert with extroverted tendencies.
Okay. So, quarantine, don't have to really do much. How does that, does that excite you? Does that freak you out?
It excites me for a while. So the first few days, it sounds really restful and great. I love video games. I love movies.
Right.
I love coffee and reading and sitting on the couch. So all of that sounds great, but there comes a point where I'm going to start to miss my girlfriend, where I'm going to miss you guys, because I'm used to being in the office with you every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I'm just going to get tired of the people I am seeing. And so that's usually when the extroverted side comes out. So it starts to get exciting until I really think
Because
about
I think we're hardwired by God for community.
Yeah.
In some capacity. And so I think where it can get dangerous on both extremes is the extrovert begins to hate isolation so much the desire to go out and be with the world can actually depress them. But an introvert can so willingly embrace isolation that they disconnect from the community that we're wired by God to have.
Right.
And so there's got to be this balance where, man, we don't dive so deep into isolation as an introvert that we miss out on the fact that we need community. And as an extrovert, we don't miss it. Like we forget that Jesus really is all we need, even if we can't be with other people. It's like there's this balance that's got to be found.
But that's what's cool about technology right now is I can hop on and FaceTime Cade and be like, I miss you, bud. You know, like there's still ways for us to have community, and it's going to require for me to be intentional about calling some people and letting them know, hey, I miss you. I was thinking about you.
Absolutely.
Just because we're isolating ourselves doesn't mean it's an excuse to disconnect yourself.
Isolation with intentionality.
Wow.
Come on,
There we go,
somebody.
Sam. One of my favorite things is from recently is from Dr. Carolyn Leaf. I don't know if you follow her on Instagram.
She came here to preach one time.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
I did
She
not
did like
know
a
that.
women's
She was
conference.
in the
I did not know
building.
that, but she's amazing.
She's cool.
And she made this quote. She said, "Every hand that we can't shake must become a phone call that we place. Every embrace that we have to avoid must become a verbal expression of warmth and concern. And every inch and every foot that we physically have between ourselves and another must become a thought as to how we might offer help emotionally and spiritually to that other person."
Wow, that's so
I think
good.
it's really good. And I think it's helpful in both ways. Sometimes we don't realize how much we need that connection
Right.
until we engage in it.
Yeah.
But also, we sometimes don't realize how much someone else needed that connection.
Absolutely.
1 Corinthians 12 still exists, which is that concept we've talked about in our one series back in September, about how there's many parts in one body. We're still one body, even though we're not together all the time. So I still need Andrew,
That's right.
and I still
You
need
better.
what he can offer. I still need Sam. Sam still needs Caden. Like,
Yeah,
everyone
that's
still-
right.
Everyone still needs each other.
I
even
think
though we're
Yeah.
apart.
kind of the conclusion and the main point here is like isolation can be a valuable thing when it's done right. It can be a time for you to refresh, it can be time for you to reset your mind, to renew your mind, to align your heart with the Lord, spend time with him. But staying in isolation, that's when it becomes unhealthy.
Yeah.
We were created, we were wired to be with people.
That's right.
So even though it may look different right now, there can still be a community that is done.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
like because you said like staying in isolation too long can like be dangerous, and so in the reason the conversation is important in today's like times like now is when the isolation is forced. How do we make it healthy?
Yeah.
Regardless of how much time we don't have a say.
Right.
You know,
And we're
so-
trying to provide all of the as many ways as we can
Right.
as a youth ministry for you guys to do that. So,
Yeah.
like 2 weeks ago, we talked about, man, who are your 3 people in small groups online on Instagram Live? Who are those 2 or 3 people? It's like I can call them, like as God models community for us in the way that the Trinity is shown.
Yeah.
Who are the people I have community with, even apart from each other, that I can call, that I can text, that I can engage
People who
with.
challenge you
People
to
who
grow.
challenge
Sure.
me to grow, who challenge me to come out of my isolation.
Yes.
And then, it's like who are those people who can, and so know those people, and also hop on when we're on. Hop
Yeah.
on Instagram Live. There's people on there who need what you have to say.
That's Yeah.
right.
Need the community that we have to offer.
Yeah, please.
With that thing, regardless of if you're introvert or extrovert. John chapter 3 verse 30. Jesus says, "He must become greater,
Right.
and I must become less." And so either one of the extremes, where I'm so extroverted that I'm depressed because I'm not with people, or I'm so introverted that I embrace isolation so willingly, he still must become greater, and I must become less.
Right.
And so if I'm introverted, there's got to be a way where I become a little bit less to not dive so deep into that. And if I'm extroverted, there's got to be a way where I become a little bit less to where I don't go crazy
Absolutely.
with just this reality that we have to face. So he
Yeah.
must become greater, and I must become less.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. Guys, anything else? Last
So good.
thoughts real quick before we go?
I have one thought,
Yeah,
real
yeah.
quick. I know we're trying to conclude. I think God is doing something super cool right now in the world. Like even though it is through disaster, even though it is through a worldwide pestilence, I think God is doing something really cool because.
word.
Thank you very much. $1 million word of the day, pestilence. Write it down. We are our generation, like us. We have been prone. We've pretty much been like brought up to. We've already been isolating like ourselves through like being on our phones statistics show that like we have a really hard time relating to each other as it is, more so than the previous generations. And so I think it's so interesting that now we are like forced to be in isolation,
like physical
isolation. No more like I'm with you in person, but I'm still on my phone and I'm not really in this
Connected,
moment.
yeah.
We're going to realize, if we're not already realizing, how much we actually need real community, real connection, real conversation. And I think God is going to, truly believe that there's going to be a shift in our culture, and that us young people are going to truly value and cherish real life, tangible
And
connections.
How cool that he's going to flip the switch.
He just flipped the switch.
And
Flip.
And that the thing that actually, when we were together, the thing that isolated us from each other,
Yeah.
is now the thing that when we're apart could actually bring us together.
Come on, somebody.
That's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool how God can work like that and use that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. That's going to be cool.
Pumped.
So, guys, thank you for joining us on episode 2
Yeah.
of Youth Cast. We love you so much. We're grateful for you. And,
We'll see you
In
soon.
your quarantine, don't get boring.
Yeah, that's right. Let's make this quarantine not boring-teen. Amen?
That's horrible.
Do some
Fine.
chores.
Get creative. No.
That's
That was
good.
not
You know
good,
what? I
Sam.
like it. I like it.
We love you. Thanks, Frank.